For an emotional, moving, and somewhat depressing film, see Alan Pakula's adaptation of William Styron's novel, Sophie's Choice. Sophie is wonderfully portrayed by Meryl Streep. Now, she is a Polish Catholic and a survivor of World War II concentration camps. The film explores the relationships between a young writer, Peter MacNicol, Sophie, and the man she loves, Kevin Kline. Sophie survived those camps, but yet can't rid herself of the guilt and pain. Meryl Streep gives an accurate and powerful performance. The film does drag in places, as it's over 2 hours long. It's rated R, and I give Sophie's Choice an 8. If you still haven't seen Gandhi, it's still playing in local theaters. I can highly recommend Richard Attenborough's impressive film biography of India's legendary pacifist leader. Ben Kingsley is superb in the title role. The film was rated PG, it's 3 hours long, and I give it a 10. Elsewhere, The Year of Living Dangerously is a political and romantic thriller set against the backdrop of the 1965 Civil War in Indonesia. Starring Mel Gibson, Sigourney Weaver, and with a wonderful performance by Linda Hunt, The Year of Living Dangerously is a different and at times strange movie that has a few problems, but it's still good. It's rated PG, and it gets a 7 on the Dino-meter. Another film rating a 7 is the drama The Lords of Discipline. It stars David Keith as a young cadet at a prominent military academy. He tries to uncover a secret hazing organization bent on keeping unworthy cadets out of the institution. The language is rough, and as a result, it's rated R. Frances, starring Jessica Lange, opens this weekend. For a cute comedy, try to catch Lovesick. And for some oldies but goodies, The Man from Snowy River, Without a Trace, 48 Hours, and Tootsie are worth your time and money. And speaking of time, mine has run out, so I'll see you next week. I'm Dean O'Lally. Sting 2 is the kind of movie that a person should see if they don't have anything else to do. So when it appears on cable or network television, you might want to give it a try. Now again, only if you're really bored and have nothing better to do. This sequel, compared to the very successful original Sting, is a disappointment. Now, even had this film starring Jackie Gleason, Carl Malden, Mac Davis, and Cary Garr been the original, things still wouldn't have worked. All the different twists and cover-ups and character surprises would be a little more tolerable to watch. But the feeling this film still seems to project is just how good the first one was. Instead of Robert Redford and Paul Newman, we've got Mac Davis and Jackie Gleason. And once again, the con is going to be put on bad guy Doyle Lonnegan. Last time he was played by Robert Shaw. This time, he's Oliver Reed. Set in New York around 1940, Reed knows that Davis and Gleason are up to something. He watches them planning another con against Carl Malden. And Reed hopes to make that con go sour on the two of them. In the middle of all these shenanigans is Terry Garr. She provides most of the film's better moments, as does Carl Malden. Terry Garr and Carl Malden steal the picture with their performances. Jackie Gleason and Mac Davis are not that bad, but the charm Redford and Newman created for their characters in the first film is not there in the second one. Gleason and Davis appear apathetic in their roles, and consequently it's difficult for us, the audience, to care what happens to them. David S. Ward, who wrote the original story, is also the writer in 2, or did he get stung? Jeremy Kagan's directing is pretty bland. Now, on my rating scale, Sting 2 only rates a 4. Some of the technical work is pretty good. The photography and production designs are nice. The music, though, along with the overall movie, is a letdown. Whereas the first Sting was witty, Sting 2 is a smart aleck. Sting 1 had class, style, and sophistication. Sting 2 is lethargic, weak, and mediocre. There is a nice little twist in the last couple of minutes of the film, but even then it's too late to have a big effect on the audience. Now, if you don't want to get stung yourself, I would try to avoid Sting 2. I'm Dean O'Lally. David Keith is well on his way to becoming a major film star. His performances are always good and impressive, and his latest role as a young cadet at a military school is no exception. The Lords of Discipline is an exceptionally good movie that has and may cause problems for some audiences. David Keith portrays Will McLean, a cadet in his senior year at the South Carolina Military Academy. He will face some extreme tests of his honor and moral character. In this, his last year, he will go against the grain of the academy, and that will be even more difficult at first since he is a racist, as is the instructor of the school, Colonel Baranow, played by Robert Prosky. The year is 1964, and the first black student has been accepted into the academy. The colonel, as well as everyone else, doesn't like it, but he nonetheless has Keith to look out after the new cadet, Cadet Pierce, played by Mark Braylon. Keith doesn't like the idea, 1, because he is a racist, and 2, because he knows that peer pressure will not be good. He fears he will be excluded or ostracized, and he is. Keith does obey the colonel's orders. Later, though, Keith discovers a secret organization at the academy. They call themselves the 10, and their purpose is to scare unworthy cadets away from the school. The 10 will do just about anything to scare those cadets off. Some have been tortured, so it stands to reason Cadet Pierce will probably bring out the worst in the 10. In this scene, we discover that the notes Pierce have been leaving Keith to tell him about his hazing are being taken.
I left 4 notes. I told you I was scared. That's it. Bull, Pierce. I check the decline of the West every day. What'd the notes say? you doing? Who did this to you? It was in the dome. Like with Poteet, and he said, I don't know. But he said if I don't get out in 2 weeks, I'll be going on the ride. I'll be going down the hole. And even if I get out alive, I wish I was dead.
Swear to God, I'm gonna find out who did this to you.
I've earned the right to be here. Whatever it takes. If I could just see it coming.
All right. We gotta find out who's been intercepting the notes. Who's your roommate?
I don't talk to him. I don't talk to anybody. What about yours?
No.
No one knows but you and me.
Somebody else knows. Somebody else knows.
Frank Rodam's directing and good acting make The Lords of Discipline work as a film. Although some sequences are harsh and brutal, they are real and believable. Mark Braylon as Cadet Pierce does a fine job. He's a young boxer in real life and had no acting experience prior to this movie. The supporting roles played by G.D. Spradlin as the Academy's commander and Michael Bain as a member of the 10 are good. Robert Prosky as the harsh but fair-minded instructor is also impressive. And David Keith proves once again he can act. His character has depth and honesty. Keith clearly shows the struggle, the humor, and human frailty of a man with moral courage. On my rating scale, The Lords of Discipline rates a 7. The film shows a person can change and rise above his prejudices and work with and help others. The Lords of Discipline is an even movie. It shows the good and bad points. It shows the confusion, changes in character, and truth in somewhat candid manner. The language is rough in the film, so be aware. The Lords of Discipline, a melodrama worth seeing. I'm Dean O'Lally. Frances is at the top of my list of movies to see this weekend. The film runs 2 hours and 20 minutes, and it's about the life of actress Frances Farmer. Frances is a rough movie to watch, but the one who makes it worthwhile is Jessica Lange. She gives a celebrated performance as the actress whose honesty led to both success and tragedy. Lange dominates the screen even when she's sharing it with Kim Stanley, who plays Frances' gruesome mother. The film, as I said before, is rough. It's rated R, and I give it an 8. There's a movie to be re-released this weekend called Road Warrior. This film is not for everybody. It's very violent and realistic. Set after a nuclear holocaust, Mel Gibson stars as a mystical hero who joins forces with some civilized survivors. They are trying to protect an oil refinery from futuristic thugs. There's lots of action. Some of the stunts are incredible. Road Warrior has an astonishingly real impact, and Mel Gibson's acting and George Miller's directing are quite impressive. The Road Warrior is rated R on their scale and a 7 on mine. Mel Gibson is also in a movie called The Year of Living Dangerously. His co-stars are Sigourney Weaver and Linda Hunt. The film is a political thriller set in 1965 Indonesia during the rule of Sukarno and his riot-torn times. This is a strange but interesting movie. It's rated PG and it gets a 7 on my rating scale. Other films worth checking out are Sophie's Choice, Gandhi, The Lords of Discipline, Lovesick, and for some oldies but goodies that have returned to some theaters or have yet to leave are Missing, An Officer and a Gentleman, Tootsie, and 48 Hours. Now, those are my recommendations for movies to see this weekend. You make the choices. I'll be back next week with more flicks to pick. I'm Dean O'Lally. When the name Peter Weir appears on the title of director for a movie, chances are the film is pretty good. Some of his past works are The Last Wave, Picnic at Hanging Rock, and Gallipoli. And his latest film, The Year of Living Dangerously, as in his past works, has an entertaining blend of action, characters, mood, and storyline. This film, starring Mel Gibson, Sigourney Weaver, and Linda Hunt, is a romantic drama set in the 1965 Civil War in Sukarno's Indonesia. Mel Gibson is Guy Hamilton, a young Australian journalist, naive, ambitious on his first outing as a foreign correspondent. He is given guidance and nurtured by Billy Kwan, a small, intelligent cameraman who tries to manipulate people in a benevolent manner. Billy knows everything and everybody and introduces a woman, Jill Bryant, played by Sigourney Weaver, to Gibson. And before I go any further, I want to stop here and say, for those who don't know, the part of Billy Kwan is played by a woman, a New York actress, Linda Hunt. Her performance as the idealistic Billy is remarkable and astonishingly effective. The film's main focal point and conscience is the part of Billy, and Linda Hunt's acting ability makes it all the more eerie and mysterious. An unusual and strange romantic triangle forms between Gibson, Weaver, and Hunt. Hunt brings the other two together. Weaver, as a British Embassy attaché, is about to return to London. She at first tries to avoid a relationship, but that attempt fails. The action really heats up when Gibson learns from Weaver that leftist guerrillas are bringing in weapons for a coup against Sukarno. He files a report betraying Weaver's confidence, thus putting them both in danger.
I wonder how they're going to get the stuff in. Probably a port up north. Yeah, coming up north. Under a false bill of lading. Tennis rackets, toilet seats, something like that.
God, you can't use this.
Then you shouldn't have told me.
Hunt is crushed and feels Gibson has deceived him.
I believed in you. I thought you were a man of light. That's why I gave you those stories you think are so important. I made you see things. I made you feel something about what you write. I gave you my trust. So did Jill. I created you.
Hunt also feels betrayed by the president Sukarno. He discovers Sukarno is a corrupt politician and that he cannot or will not help the poor people. As a result of this broken faith, Hunt makes a powerful protest. The Year of Living Dangerously contains roadside mass assassinations, love scenes, and other strange scenes, which add to the different moods. Hunt's narration provides even more in the film's imagery and pacing. Mel Gibson, Sigourney Weaver, and Linda Hunt all give impressive performances. Everyone's acting is quite good. Weaver and Gibson appear to make a very good couple. The film's musical score is strange but very effective and beautiful in a mystical sort of way. On my rating scale, The Year of Living Dangerously rates a 7. There are some flaws that take a small amount away from the film. Hunt's political activism is sometimes confusing. We never see Gibson file his story that supposedly will endanger him and Weaver. After the story is reported, there are no obvious reactions. And the film's ending could have packed more of a punch. But Peter Weir's directing and good performances make for an absorbing and at times fascinating movie. I'm Dean O'Lally. The Directors Guild of America's nominees for Best Director were Sidney Pollack for the smash comedy Tootsie, Taylor Hackford for the surprise hit An Officer and a Gentleman, Richard Attenborough for Gandhi, Steven Spielberg for E.T., now the highest-grossing film of all times, and Wolfgang Petersen for Das Boot, the first director of a German film to be so honored. Warren Beatty, who was given the honor last year for his direction of the motion picture Reds, announced the winner.
The winner is Gandhi, directed by Richard Attenborough.
I'm sure you will understand when I say that I know that really what you are honoring is hope, faith, love, compassion, and tolerance demonstrated in the life in which we attempted to chronicle the life of Mahatma Gandhi.
There have only been 3 directors given this award who have not gone on to win the Oscar, and that covers the 35 years that this prestigious award has been given out. Just being nominated for an Oscar can boost a film's profits. Sometimes it can double and triple the earnings of a film. Last year, Chariots of Fire grossed $12 million prior to the nominations. In the 6 weeks between when the nominations were announced and the Oscar ceremonies, an additional $20 million rolled in. And another $42 million went into the theaters after it won Best Picture. And so far, it looks as if Gandhi has benefited from the same shot in the financial arm as Chariots of Fire did last year. As one critic wrote, the effect of Oscar on a film's financial future is in direct proportion to its popularity. For instance, E.T.'s profit figures are so spectacular now that its 9 nominations really didn't help the picture all that much. But there is a remark attributed to movie moguls Sam Goldwyn and Louis B. Mayer that fits the occasion. It says Oscar is definitely more business than show, and it seems to say it all. I'm Dean O'Lally. Steven Spielberg's blockbuster hit, E.T. the Extraterrestrial, is now the highest-grossing film of all times. The film, since its record-setting opening last summer, has been called many things. It's also spurred a lot of souvenirs. It's been called a modern classic, a masterful work of art, a film phenomenon, did you hear that? And the perfect movie. And I agree with most of those descriptions, except for the last one. It was recently brought to my attention that there is a flaw in E.T. Did you hear me? A flaw, a major flaw. Now, Steven Spielberg is one of my favorite directors. He is a perfectionist. But one big mistake got by him and the editors of the film. Now, I can't believe he left this in. Now, here's the scene in question. It's where Elliot has had one of his first encounters with E.T. Elliot runs into the house to tell his mom and his friends not to go outside. Now I'm going to run the scene as is, see if you can locate the big mistake.
Where's the pizza?
Mom, there's some out there. It's in the tool shelf. It threw the ball at me. Nobody go out there.
Did you see it? Huh? Well, okay, if you miss it the first time, I'm going to run it again. Now, this time we're going to enlarge the mistake so you can more clearly see it when it happens. Now, watch the boy to Elliot's left. Watch his lips as Elliot says the line, "Nobody go out there."
Where's the pizza?
Mom, there's some out there. It's in the tool shelf. It threw the ball at me. Nobody go out there.
I'm running the scene one more time. What the boy is doing is mouthing the same line that Elliot is saying. The line, "Nobody go out there." The boy to Elliot's left and on the right of your screen apparently just subconsciously moved his lips in sync with Elliot when he actually says the line.
Nobody go out there.
Isn't that pitiful? A beautiful movie down the drain because of a blatant boo-boo like that. Spielberg, you just lost my vote. Now, all joking aside, I've had a few people tell me about this flaw, and I thought you would get a kick out of seeing it. I do, of course, believe E.T. is a modern classic, an almost perfect movie. The story tugs at your heartstrings and imagination. Now, of course, it's easy to let something that minute go by. Now, take my stories, for instance. It could be very possible sometimes for my mouth movements not to be in sync with the words that are coming out. But you'll never see that happen to me. I'm Dean O'Lally. As far as writing comedy, I know a lot of the comedians these days write their own material as compared to in the old days with Hope and Burl and so forth. Do you see that as a trend that will stay here, saying the comedians in the next
Well, what I
5
like
to
to
10
do
years?
is I like to find a new guy, steal his act, and then shame him into leaving the business. That's probably this way you get a tremendous amount of material, plus it doesn't take a lot of effort. Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a lot like the music industry. You can't just be a singer anymore. You have to be a singer, arranger, writer. You know, and you've got to show up at the record company and go, listen, I wrote this song, and here's the music I wrote to go with it, and here are the words. Because that's the way people aren't interested in someone just a good voice anymore. And it's the same thing with comedy. You've got to have a personality, and you've got to be able to perform it, and, you know, the whole 9 yards.
Are there some comedians these days that, say, may rely on a couple of writers? Do the other comedians that write their own material look upon them as...
oh, no. I mean, for example... take someone like Dave Letterman. Now, Dave writes all his own material, but he's on a show every night of the week. So, obviously, you have to employ some writers.
Speaking of Letterman, we have some footage of, I believe, the last time you were on the show. It was the night that you put together some highlights.
That one?
Yes.
Oh, that one. Yeah, I did that one. I was on again last Wednesday, too. I like to write specific things for that show. And that's fun, because then you do something that people never saw before, and it's fun for me to do something and throw it away.
Designer jeans?
Designer jeans.
Very mad at designer jeans. Now they have designer jeans for children, and they don't even call them children anymore. They call them young singles. Tommy's 9, he's looking for action.
Tell us about some of your hobbies. I understand you have a very interesting one.
Oh, I collect motorcycles and things. I have about 8 motorcycles, and I like fixing... I used to be a mechanic, so I like fixing up cars and motorcycles and things like that.
Do you have an idol in the comedy profession?
My favorites were anybody that's conceptual. Robert Klein, Carlin, any of those guys. Steve Martin, anybody doing something original. Rodney Dangerfield. I mean, Rodney's the best at what he does. There are a lot of guys that do that style, but none of them with the conviction and the attitude that Rodney has. So there are a number of people I generally enjoy.
So you will be appearing at Joker's all this week?
I'll be at Joker's. I do want to thank the owner, Bob Joker. Just a guy who had a crazy idea for a club. And fortunately, it worked out. You know.
Well, we'll see you at Joker's this week. Good luck to you.
Well, thank you.
Break a leg and
I'll see you down there at the show.
I will be there. Thank you for talking with us. Sorceress is clearly one of those movies that's so bad it's actually funny. The acting is ridiculous, the special effects are The script is weak. The film's actions, such as the many sword fights, are incredibly non-believable and unexciting. Everything in Sorceress is silly and absurd. The story is about twin girls who are raised as boys. Their father is an evil sorcerer, Tragon, played by Robert Ballesteros. Now, he kills the girl's mother and plans to sacrifice the firstborn in return for more evil and wicked powers. Now, on Tragon's side is an attractive princess, Delicia, played by Anna de Sade. On the twin side, who, by the way, are Lee and Lynette Harris, are half man, half something, whatever his name is, Pando, idiotically portrayed by David Milburn, Baldar, who looks like a Viking that didn't quite make it, and Ehrlich, played by Bob Nelson. Now, when the twins are still in ancient diapers, they are given magical fighting powers. And some of that is evident here in this scene where they are captured, and Tragon is actually trying to find out who the firstborn is. Huh? What? Real exciting stuff, hey folks? Lots of true action, fights, and who are they kidding? The whole thing stinks. It's obvious the makers of Sorceress are spoofing fantasy films. Now, on my rating scale, Sorceress gets a 1. The film does contain nudity. It also contains sexual innuendos, and the repeated epithet of the sisters, the two who are one, is included in what the filmmakers try to have as a cute sex joke. Sorceress is stupid, and if you wanted to see the kind of movie that's so poorly done and so bad overall, Sorceress might be worth a $2 matinee. But other than that, Sorceress needs to be turned on itself and made to disappear. I'm Dean O'Lally. The films Frances and Sophie's Choice are still high on my list of movies to see this weekend. Both are good, but they are also depressing films. On my rating scale, they both rate an 8. Frances is the powerful film version of the life of actress Frances Farmer. Her honesty led to both success and tragedy. Jessica Lange gives a superb performance in the lead role. Sophie's Choice is based on the best-selling novel by William Styron. There is some outstanding acting in this film about a Polish survivor of World War II concentration camps. Meryl Streep is remarkable in her role as Sophie. Both Frances and Sophie's Choice are rated R. If you want comedy and you haven't seen Tootsie, then go. If you have seen Tootsie, the next closest thing to comedy would be two films. They're both, I hate to use this word so much, but cute. The names are Lovesick and Trenchcoat. Lovesick stars Dudley Moore and Elizabeth McGovern. Moore is a psychiatrist who has an affair with his patient, who is McGovern. Alec Guinness steals the show, though, in his role as Sigmund Freud. Lovesick definitely has its problems, but if you don't have anything else to do, you might want to give it a try. It's rated PG, and it gets a 5. Trenchcoat stars Margot Kidder and Robert Hayes. It's a mystery/comedy that has Kidder as an amateur mystery writer who gets caught up in international intrigue. Now, here again, Trenchcoat, like Lovesick, doesn't always work, but there are some funny moments. It's rated PG, and I give it a 5. The Road Warrior is in re-release. It's also a good movie. Now, you can't go wrong seeing Gandhi, and The Lords of Discipline, I think, is worth your time and money. And that's it for now. I'll be back next week with more flicks to pick. I'm Dean O'Lally. How many times have you been to Oklahoma?
I've only been here once before. I did a play, my first musical I did, Little Abner, in Tulsa. We were there for a couple of weeks. And this is only my second visit. I'm here visiting the C.R. Anthony people. We do a clothing line, and they're handling our silk jackets. So it's business and pleasure, but right now the pleasure has really overwhelmed the business.
Well, you have appeared on stage quite often. What projects do you have in the near future?
We're opening again in Philadelphia with The Rainmaker, April the 12th. I just finished The Rainmaker 6 weeks in Dallas, and got a little time off, so I enjoyed doing it so much that I decided to do it some more. What is really great about doing the theater work is you get good material to work with, as you know, which is so important, and The Rainmaker is a grand piece.
What about some films that you would like to do maybe in the future?
Well, that's just what I was saying. You get a chance to work good material in the theater. In the film industry, at my level at this stage, the last 15 scripts I've looked at have been unacceptable. They're not the kind of roles that I think or my agent thinks would advance me career-wise, or roles that done in good taste, kind of quality work would like to do.
Even in the early part of your football career, did you have in the back of your mind and say, well, when this is all over and done, I want to go into the theater, I want to go into the film? Did you always have that idea?
You know, being an athlete, I guess you're on stage most of the time, too, and you have that innate feeling, or I've had the feeling of being on stage for a long time. Acting, per se, really didn't come into play until I was exposed to a first motion picture that I worked in called Norwood. I really didn't plan it in the early years. If I had, I would have studied more in college and in school and practiced more for sure. But over the last 5 or 6 years, I've been working at it quite a bit, and I enjoy it.
When I was watching you come into the building, it looked like you were still in great shape. What do you do now to stay in shape?
Whenever I went with the Los Angeles Rams in '77, they put me on a swimming program. I can't run because I have arthritic right knee, and anything bouncing around irritates the knee. Well, I swim. And I ended up buying a house in California for the swimming pool. I didn't have a place to swim out there.
The house just came along with the pool.
That's
so
exactly what happened, yes. So I enjoy it.
If you have a couple of free hours, say in an afternoon, and you don't have any commitments or any place to go, how would you spend that afternoon?
I'd spend it first in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where I have a home also. That's my favorite home, Fort Lauderdale. And I'd probably had started out in the morning fishing. In Fort Lauderdale, I do no work at all.
Well, we most certainly enjoy having you here, and it's a pleasure to meet and talk with you. And good luck to any project you might come up with in the near future.
Well, thank you, Dina. I appreciate visiting with you.
Background. Okay, and action.
So where's my doctor?
He's coming.
Darling, you told me that 20 minutes ago.
I beeped him. That's all I can do.
It's another production day on the set of the television show St. Elsewhere. Never heard of it? Well, it's there, buried in NBC's Tuesday night schedule. Producer Mark Tinker.
It's no secret that our ratings are terrible, and I'm not quite sure what to make of that because a day doesn't go by where I hear a story or of someone running into somebody, or I run into somebody personally who says to me, it's my favorite show, I love it.
Although we do ask you to sit and to concentrate and to watch, there isn't fluff. I think that it is the finest kind of entertainment, which is intelligent entertainment.
Intelligent entertainment is a high priority of MTM Productions, the company that produced The Mary Tyler Moore Show, The White Shadow, and Hill Street Blues, and now St. Elsewhere.
The show basically came about when NBC wanted to do Hill Street in a hospital.
I think what NBC wants is a 32 share in a hospital. That's what they want.
Can we take some gaffer's tape and make it sticky on both sides?
Executive producer Bruce Paltrow is directing this episode. It's his job to put together a program that will attract that 32 share.
We pick medical things that are visually exciting to do. I mean, there's obviously active medicine and passive medicine. We choose, obviously, more often than not to go with the active medicine.
Hold it, and I'll get it.
Don, you okay? Are we okay?
850. 850?
Ricky, that's real good. Okay, let's print that, okay? Let's come around.
Making sure that St. Elsewhere is medically correct is the job of Marilyn Bradford. She's a real-life nurse who works with the performers and production crew.
And the best way to do that is to take your hand and hold the forehead back because it keeps the trachea straight. And you just keep
a challenge for Marilyn is to keep the technical details accurate, even though it's all make-believe.
I have to compromise, and I know that it's somewhere between right and wrong, but sometimes you just have no choice because of the camera. You have to be able to shoot some scenes for the camera.
Stand-up comic Howie Mandel, who is performing in his first dramatic role, says he's developing his acting and his medical knowledge.
An open thoracotomy tray and 2 central intravenous catheters and a mass suit stat. So you remember that stuff. And it comes in handy when you're out dancing on Friday night.
Tomorrow, a look at stand-up comic Howie Mandel and his character, Dr. Wayne Fiscus. I'm Dean O'Lally.